Hello, internet, and welcome to the stream. Welcome to the podcast. I'm joined here today by Sebastian. Say hi.
Hello.
Oh,
Hi,
you did
everyone.
cut out a little bit, but it works now. Hello.
Okay.
So, Sebastian, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who the hell are you?
I'm
How
an
do
avid
how do
enjoyer
we
of
know each
life.
other? You're an enjoyer of life. That's
Yeah,
so
how I would
deep.
describe myself.
Wow, so deep.
Deep into fantasy, sci-fi, playing video games, strategy. Me and Luke, we go way back.
Yeah,
Way,
that's
way, way back,
that
actually.
is that
To
is true.
kindergarten.
That is true. And
Yeah.
that's also the reason we're here today. Actually, not because the whole going way back, but more because of the avid enjoyer of fantasy. And I am personally, I read a lot of fantasy as well. I had a like pretty long break, but I came back to it because I got an audiobook software thing called Audible. No, wait, it's Mofibo Storytel. It's got a lot of names. It's basically Audible. So I can listen to audiobooks while I
It's,
work.
it's one of those conglomerate situations, dude. Like,
Yeah.
like Nestle owns half the world or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true, true,
Or the
true.
guys who own Nestle own half. Yeah.
Yeah, true. So, well, today is kind of episode zero because none of us have really like prepared any book or anything that we are supposed to be talking about. But at the same time, we've talked about just kind of bringing up what kind of books we've read, um, kind of what our history is with books and with fantasy.
Yeah, and sharing our impression of books.
Yeah,
Try to get each other hyped to read the books. Because there's
true.
no better feeling than hyping somebody else to read or listen to the book you've read
Exactly.
yourself.
So, well, for starters, I think one of the first books I ever really read was I think it was actually Harry Potter. That was like the first books I really read. But
Seriously.
the ones that first caught me a lot, that was Lord of the Rings, like 100%. Have
Well, I
you
started on a historical novel
hmm?
called I think it's The Pillars of Earth in English.
Yeah.
Um, by Ken Follett, a classic. I
Hmm?
read it a little bit too early, in my development phase, because
Yeah.
it's kind of a rough book. But I read it when I was like 12 or something.
Yeah.
But that really got me into reading adult books because I read some young not children's book, but like, for young people
Hmm?
before that.
Yeah.
And then
I
I
think
got hooked
actually
on
my
that.
dad read that one as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really popular with old people. My granddad had like the entire Ken Follett collection at home.
But aren't those more like true crime or something?
No, no, he does true crime and detective novels, but did a historical novel set in like the 11th century.
Hmm?
I can't remember when the first set England.
Okay, so
So
it is kind of fantasy.
it's kind of tapped into my those historical leanings.
Yeah,
I
of
always
course.
loved history.
Yeah, and important thing to note is that you, as you mentioned, you're a big history nerd as well.
Mm,
Studied history. You've even got your bachelor's degree in history, right?
yeah, bachelor's in history.
Bachelor's in
He's
history.
got questions. Come at him, dudes.
Fucking nerd.
Is there anybody? Okay.
Pillars of the Earth. You said. Ken
Yeah, I think
Follett.
it's
I remember seeing it on my dad's bookshelf, but I've never actually dug into it.
it's really good. Not
Hmm?
gonna lie, but that's what like hooked me to adult reading. It's also kind of a long book actually
Yeah.
to take on at that age.
What's it about? Like,
It's
explain the book to
yeah,
me.
you follow different characters. I believe it's
Hmm?
centered around one family. There are successive books around like the descendants of this family
Mm-hmm.
of stonemasons, I believe it is, who are building a cathedral.
Yeah.
Now the problem, and you also follow a monk, I believe.
Okay.
That's it's a very long time ago I read that.
Yeah.
And how did I get into fantasy? Actually, I don't know. I read all the Rings. I remember in
Of course. Of
Danish.
course.
They were good first time you read them. They're really good, but I don't. They don't really hold.
You don't think
It's
they
kind
hold?
of no. I don't think they hold with the way modern fantasy has gone after George. revolution with a Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah,
I think
true.
I think they can't really stand the test of time.
I remember we talked about the first time, because this is actually the second time around that we're trying to do a podcast like this. The first time, like I mentioned, was before you started moving and everything, and then we kind of lost touch with it, and now we're back at it. But back then we talked a lot about Lord of the Rings, because that's kind of, as you say, where we both started and what we've dug most into, and it's so different from what fantasy is now when you look at it. It's like Lord of the Rings has this very, very black and white way of looking at everything. It's like there's the good people are good. They are morally pure. Like if it's black and white, and the bad people are bad and deceive you, and you get corrupted by the evil. It's kind of like actually the Bible in some way, and like we talked about, it stems a little bit from Tolkien's theological background.
It's extremely moralistic in that way. It's divided into good and evil, no in betweens, no characters fighting their own nature. I think a really good example would be looking at the character Cersei in the Song of Ice and Fire. The way you can actually root for this character, because you follow her point of view and you get into her head.
Even though she is like legit bad.
She does horrible things. You can actually sit there reading this and understand her reasoning and support those reasonings in this little universe. And you don't have those conflicts. With Tolkien, it's all go complete quest, kill evil, go home.
Yeah, it really is. It's the adventure. Like at the end of the day.
It's overcoming adversity, and
it's I am going on an adventure with my friends. Oh no, adventure go bad. It's
but you also gotta remember, you gotta give it credit for really putting fantasy on the map. Tolkien really did that.
Definitely. And a fun thing, like for me, is that I have read I've read a different set of novels that my brother brought home from Australia once long ago. He was on like one of those find yourself trips to Australia.
He always was a fucking surfer dude. Seriously, of course he did that.
so he went to Australia, and he went to find himself and all that. And then once he came home, he brought these books, which were called, the first one's called Magician. It's part of a bigger cycle called the Rift War cycle, and in the Rift War cycle, you kind of meet these characters who also go on an adventure, but I feel like it's a lot more.
Can I jump in quickly?
Yeah.
It's like Lord of the Rings 2.0. It's like it's still this kind of fantasy. This kind of fantasy just really developed in its scale and cosmic scale, and also the scale of the adventure itself.
Yeah, definitely. And it feels like I remember feeling like back when I read it, that because I played World of Warcraft basically all my life, and I remember feeling like back then that it kind of had this feeling of World of Warcraft, but in a book. And I actually thought that it was written way after World of Warcraft and the Warcraft universe came out, because it dives into this this concept of a portal from a different Earth coming to the Earth of our main characters, and then an invasion from there with these alien creatures, and they're fleeing from a big bad demon legion hunting them, and every step of the way it's very much the same story that World of Warcraft had. And,
but isn't it like really old though?
It's like super old. The first one came out a couple years after I think it was 84 or something. So it's like 10, 15 years after Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, 82, 86.
Yeah,
82.
And that's insane to think about, like, because I thought this was inspired by the other popular culture that I knew, but at the end of the day, it was actually the other pop culture that was inspired by this one.
What's this illustration on the stream right here?
The one right now, this is from the Mistborn books.
Okay.
and
Oh
some
my
art
god!
from there.
I can't do this.
You
Like
can't
these
do
people
this.
exist in my head, and now you manifest them into reality. This is not how they're supposed to look.
That's actually kind of funny. I've been re-listening to another podcast called Potterless, where he goes through the Harry Potter books, and he also talks about this like idea of characters manifesting in your head. Where for me, I can never manifest the characters in my head. I see the movie equivalent of them. If I'm just reading, I have no idea what they actually look like. I need some kind of movie before I can actually see what they look like.
It's also like the chicken and the egg. What comes first?
Yeah,
If
true.
you see the movies first, you can never go. Viggo Mortensen is forever Aragorn, right?
Yeah, 100%.
That's how you imagine Aragorn.
He will always be Aragorn for me. Um, we talked about long ago kind of the world building of this was in the Two Towers. We talked about that, how the world building exists in the Lord of the Rings, and in the new books you're reading these days. How does the world building work in those? Because I remember we talk a lot about like Tolkien actually going into so much detail about stuff that doesn't really matter. Like, he really explains everything. Whereas for me, in the newer books I'm reading, the world building is a lot less relevant.
Definitely.
It's like there's a tree. You don't have to be explained how the tree looks.
No, it's much more show, don't tell, kind of. You show these hint of a larger history or larger magical world around us, but you don't get the full explanation.
No.
But especially Joe Abercrombie, I would say, does this, where he places you with these characters in a world with much larger things going on that these small people have a chance to influence. And so he hints at these things going on, this giant hidden war between two. In the first Law universe, it's between a great prophet, a magician of old, and Bias, the first apprentice of the greatest magician there ever was. And these two have waged a secret war for thousands of years. And there's like characters who have no idea this is going on, who are just pawns in these people's play, and die because of this. Experience horrible things.
You've actually been talking a lot about the first Law lately. Would you like to like explain that a little bit? Because you've been trying to explain it to me, but I've been saying save it for the podcast.
There's a lot of books in this series, and I think I've done 5 out of 7 or something like that, because they weren't all on Mofibo, sadly. But what really got me into this universe is how he does the things that George does, where he takes one character's point of view and really ingrains you with this character. And treats them as human beings with their own moral compass, and they might not be good people. We're not Aragorn here trying to reclaim Gondor and make everything right, and we're just a good guy because that's what we are. We're a dude with a history of Logan Ninefingers, for example, one of the main characters in the first book. He's a murderer. He single-handedly killed 11 people in single combat. He took a guy who was prisoner. You find this out way later, after the first book. You find out the guy who he took prisoner, he was supposed to hand him over. He disemboweled him, spread his innards around a prison cell, took his head off, threw the head off, made those where they made the dead guy's lips move as a joke to another guy. Yeah. He's a complete psycho in his early years, but we meet him a bit later after he's been thrown out of the North, and we hear these hints about this fucked past he has, and he's a fighter, that's for sure.
But we don't really believe it, I guess.
No, it's like we like him anyways because of his past, and then we're really confronted with it a few times. But he's really a redemption story guy.
It's kind of interesting, like Baguette says here in chat, Tolkien kind of needed to be more detailed than most authors need to be now. And I think, do you think that comes from the fact that he was coming from an era of historical fiction?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what the literary theme of the time. I don't think we can point, because it's more modern what's going on now. This is more social interaction with people's. I think when you have like literary movements, when you have the social movements of the 20s and the 10s, I think those have flowed over to fantasy a bit later. because we've kind of shattered the image of the fantasy book just being good versus evil in this cosmic struggle. And right now we want to place people, human beings, in fantastical settings.
Yeah, it's kind of like these days fantasy more tackle these questions that like you actually ask in your everyday life, but in a fantastical setting, making it more, I guess, relatable to the normal person.
Yeah, exposing humanity in these situations.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of the things that happen in A Song of Ice and Fire are like very much about this. What would you do yourself if you were here? What's your plan? You can't just expect the world to go the way you want it to. This is a real world, and real shit happens, and you die. People
and
die.
How do you react?
Yeah. And also, like, plans don't go the way they expect them to, and stuff like that.
I think that's a really good point, actually. Plans not going the way they're supposed to is what really shook the fantasy genre, I believe, as well. You know, actually, the main characters failing.
Yeah,
you don't believe that to happen in the earlier books. Like, not even The Magician, I don't believe it to really happen.
Not really, no. Like the closest the main characters have to failing is like when some of them die, but that just happens because of the drama of it. But they always succeed at the end in some way. I mean, I guess the one I just got through actually, it's called the it's the last one. Let me just Rift War Cycle. Second to last one of the books. It's called the Demon War Saga, where in that one the end of the book they kind of lose, but that's also written in 2010, so it's part of this new movement, and it makes sense. But that one ends with the Surani, like the invaders from the first book. They became friends with humanity and started having like cross-world trade and shit. And the Surani world gets invaded by this demon legion, and the only way to stop it is by nuking the world, like legit just blowing that shit up. So they try to evacuate they try to evacuate everyone off the planet, and they're like, hell no, because of they don't believe that this thing is a thing that's gonna happen, because they're like, well, we're busy with all our court shit and the machinations of society, you know. So a lot of them don't believe that's happening, and they end up only evacuating like a couple 100,000 before the main character opens a portal to the moon of that planet and just rams the moon into it, blowing up everything. Very crazy. It's one of the coolest scenes.
That shows how cosmic the Rift War Cycle, the cosmic scale of these books, and how ridiculous it can get. I'm sorry, but sometimes it's a bit ridiculous.
It really is, and I talked to you about this on messages as well, that I'm not really feeling like I want to finish them at this point, because they don't have the same feel that the first ones had. They've gone crazy.
I think it's about grounding.
Thing. Yeah, I really think
grounded in people.
Grounding the stories in general, I feel, is a lot better than what we're getting, or what we got back then, where it was all toss up.
Yeah, it's more good versus evil.
Yeah.
So these biblical like flow overs from old times, like good versus evil, angels versus demons, classic. Good versus evil struggle.
Yeah, it's less about good versus evil struggle, and it's more about morally gray but kind of good versus morally gray but kind of bad.
I think though morals, it's a dangerous word. It's like, it's situational morals. You engage yourself in one person's point of view, and it's him or hers morals that determine your worldview.
I saw a video once talking about you will always have the assumption that the person you meet first is the one doing the right thing. And that's like not just in books, that's in life as well. It's just in general, you'll always assume that the one you meet first is the one that's like the good guy, or you never really questioned it in old fantasy books, but now they do a lot of this, like setting stuff up to make it questionable. You have to question, are we the bad guys?
Also, the permanence of these characters you follow, the point of view. People are no longer permanent. After Eddard Stark gets his head chopped off in A Game of Thrones, the permanence is over. These main characters aren't safe because they're main characters.
True.
They aren't sacred. That's really a giant breach of this relationship between the author and the reader. Because we don't expect this to happen. We will never have thought a good man, one we're rooting for, sitting here, he actually fucking dies straight up, unfairly. He's been promised he's gonna live, gets his fucking head chopped off for no fucking reason.
I remember when I read the books, it's way worse than in the show.
It's fucking horrible.
Because in the show, you kind of get this idea that he's fucked no matter what he does, but in the book, he gets out. His promise is that he gets out. He does what he has to do, and he's promised that he's gonna live. And then even like the other characters flip a shit when all of a sudden he just decides, fuck it, I'm gonna kill him. What the hell? What's his face? The king, the little Joffrey. Joffrey, exactly. Joffrey just goes crazy. He just acts like a crazy person and decides, fuck it, I'm gonna kill Eddard. Even though the deal was that he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, the disgrace he suffers, it's also worse in the books. Like you hear that family sword they had, Ice.
Yeah.
Great Valyrian steel, how they take that and they melt it down into two new swords for the Lannisters. And I think that they really did him dirty.
Mm-hmm. But that's what George wants. And that's what I like about George's writing in general, that he wants the world to be a dirty and unfair place, just like it is in real life.
But it comes down to, it's all about invoking emotion in you. That's what George really does when he does these scenes where you feel powerless to stop these things happening. You really feel emotional.
Yeah, recently both of us, or I don't know how long ago it is, but recently I at least read the Farseer trilogy, and you read that not so long ago as well. And we talked about right before this podcast, actually, speaking of powerless situations, how in the second book in that like trilogy, the main character actually straight up loses. He straight up loses, and he's got nothing left. He's got nothing to do. He loses everything, and he's imprisoned. He's caught by the bad guys, and he's put to the sword. He's supposed to get killed.
It's insane. It's actually insane. You spent 1.5 book following this guy from being a small child to growing up to a young adult, young man, believing in him and his plots to overthrow this bad guy's evil uncle, I think it is.
Yeah, it's his uncle.
If I remember correctly. Gets taken prisoner, tortured. It's really, you should try reading your main character getting tortured. It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah, especially because it was a first for me. The entire book is written from first-person perspective. That's so unusual for me.
Yeah, following the same character for so long. It's not usually how they do it nowadays. They flip point of views much more.
It's very omnipotent. Omnipotent was the word I was trying to say.
Definitely.
Where that one is just, you're following this one character and you're seeing everything from his point of view, which also makes it a little bit untrustworthy, some of the things that happen, and the morals are questionable. But at the end of the day, you really get in his head, and then just experiencing the pain and the just giving up. It
really highlights the pros of doing this kind of story, because when he gets captured and the feelings that are invoked in the reader are really, 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 you feel terrible. You do. And I think those feelings are enhanced or enlarged because there's only one character. There's only one main character. There's this guy, he's the good guy.
He's the one that we are. Whereas,
exactly.
If you again spin it back to Game of Thrones, it's like, even though you don't want your main characters to die, it's like, okay, if it's like Red Wedding, for example, when they all die, okay, skip to the next story. We're still here. We're still in this world. But if the main character in a first person book dies, then we're not in the world anymore. we're done.
He actually dies in the Farseer trilogy as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He has to die, and his soul travels to his.
Yes, the thing about the Farseer trilogy is that there's magic in the world, but it's not bingo bongo, I cast fireball, you die kind of magic. It's
bingo bongo.
It's more of a subtle kind of magic where they can scry, they can talk to each other telepathically across long distances, and
it's tied to blood.
Yeah,
this is bloodline that can do magic, and there's this other kind of blood that can do magic with beasts, involving beasts.
Yeah, that's what I was about to get into. That there's the second kind of magic that, for some reason, in the trilogy they don't really say why, but for some reason this wit, as it's called, beast magic, is looked down on. Where if you are a witted person, they consider you kind of a beast man thing, where you're more connected to the animal than you are to actual human beings and the world and everyone in it. So therefore you're looked down on when you have beast magic.
Because you become more beast than man as time progresses.
Exactly.
You bind too much with beasts.
And that's what the main character has to do. He actually has to die. He has to let go of his human body. He has to let go of his soul in his human body and transfer it into his beast, into his wolf, and then become one with it. And then after his body's died, dead and buried, he gets fucking dug out by his friends. And then the wolf goes to his body and is like, look at this. Look at yourself. Go back in there. And it even mentions that it takes like a long time for him to get back to normal again.
Because he lived as a wolf and he loved it. Yeah. He loved being a wolf. It's much a part of him as being human was. So going back to being human again, he had to learn eating with like a fork and a knife. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that, honestly, I think that part is the best part of the entire trilogy. Like the in the start of the third book, where he has to find himself again, and his emotions as well are completely twisted from being inside the wolf. Because when you're a wolf, when you're an animal, there is only fuck, eat, sleep. And that's the three things that are on his mind when he gets back to being a human again as well. And
yeah, existing in this world of men with like relationships and all this. It's really fun. I think the best part for me was like him learning to be an assassin and the way they dealt with those zombies they had. I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, true.
A little detail, because I thought it wasn't like, okay, you're gonna grab a blade, go out and chop their heads off. No, they dropped like poisonous food for them, and they sort of mention nonchalantly how the main character has to go on these missions to poison the entire villages and hordes of these zombies, drop it after himself and run away.
I think it also it comes from him not being like that old, which I think it's really cool that it feels like they're considering him not actually being an adult when he does this, so they're trying to not have him be the one to make the kill, even though he knows he's the one making the kill. He knows he's the one killing people. But he's not like actively stabbing them. He's not.
No, it's indirect.
Exactly.
It's poison or that way around. Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. Sadly, that book goes a little bit bonkers towards the end with the whole elderlings and all that.
Yeah.
We should have probably mentioned at the start of this show, spoiler alert for the books that we're talking about. But basically, these elderlings are these mythical creatures that are, you never really know what they are because it's not explained. And again, we see it through our main character's eyes, and he doesn't know shit. And more often than not, he's actually not the brightest around.
he needs a lot of help.
He really does. He doesn't put two and two together that well, but he's very lucky. At least,
definitely.
But towards the end, they go on this pilgrimage to where the elderlings lived, and you end up meeting up with another of his uncles that left 2
I
books
get
ago,
really spacey,
and
man.
it gets so weird. And at the end of it all, they just win. I think that annoyed me a lot about it. It's like, now we just won.
They win by waiting. Like, okay, this giant journey we got here. Now let's just wait and stay.
Yeah.
They just stay in the same place for like 4 chapters until finally they're ready to
I remember when
in and save the day.
Because when I was listening to it, I of course every time I put it on, I saw how many hours or minutes there were left of the audiobook, and I remember them getting to like the end of the journey, the destination, and meeting him and doing all the things, and I'm like, well, what now? And then I look, and there's half an hour left of the book.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? Where's the war? Where's the big climax? Where's everything's going crazy? None of that.
Yeah, I wanted them to swoop in and kill those bad guys. I wanted to experience that in pages.
I did too.
They've motherfucking chopped the dragon out of stone and resurrected it to life with one of the uncle's own consciousness, and we can't tear people apart. Read it.
But that's again because we have the first person narrative. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't go on the dragons. He stays.
No.
He stays behind with like his wolf because he prefers being with his wolf, which we know because we've been following him and we know that he prefers his wolf. We know that's what he wants. So it makes sense character-wise, but I want to see it.
I think that trilogy really did the climax really poorly.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
I love it when it culminates in a great battle. That's how I usually enjoy these things.
Yeah, me too.
I listened to a short, like what is it called? Half a World, Half a King, and Half a War. 3 books. Set in a sort of post-apocalyptic Viking setting. It's very funny, dude. There's there are these ruins around.
Yeah.
Of elves, they call them elven ruins. Of buildings of materials that's much stronger than average peoples of this Viking age. They sail around Viking ships. And in the 3rd book, you find out that these elven ruins are an ancient civilization that was much more advanced than the current one.
Okay.
So they pull from these ruins weapons, modern day level weapons, maybe a little bit more advanced.
Fucking guns and shit?
Yeah. Okay. Straight up guns. So in the final battle, in this Viking age, axes, swords, and shields.
Yeah.
They pull out motherfucking cannons. And there's this scene where an old lady who's gone a bit crazy, she's sitting on top with a grenade launcher, just firing rounds into this mass of people, and they're just panicking, blowing up, flames. You can imagine how people would react seeing this.
100%.
You're used to fighting hand to hand and then just getting your head blown off.
Imagine being like in that and like all of a sudden this fucking magical boomstick just comes out of nowhere and you're done. You're wrecked.
Yeah. Rips your fucking head off.
Yeah, I honestly I wanna because my idea with this whole podcast is not just that you and I sitting here and talking. It's actually also I want to read new books and talk about those, but I want to read books that questions things, wanna read books that makes you question everything.
Dude, that's exactly why I recommended The Heroes from the First Law series. I think it's kind of standalone, don't quote me on this, but it's in this universe. But the way this book is about one battle, takes place around one battle, and you get different points of view, and it's over 7 days, but it highlights the atrocities of war and how this affects people around it. And that's when it comments on these things, books.
Yeah, I think that's really
when they
great.
really get good.
Baguette mentions Inheritance by Christopher Paolini.
Is that with the Aragon series? Is that? I read those in Danish, actually. I chopped them through.
I feel like I've heard of the books.
But isn't Inheritance just the name of one of them, or is it the trilogy that's called?
Oh, no. Aragon, exactly, yeah. You're right.
But Christopher wrote those. Christopher Paolini wrote those when he was very young. The first one, actually. And you can see it in the first book. It's sort of the run-of-the-mill fantasy, not deep dive, good, bad, morally.
but they're not done yet, are they? Isn't it
Yeah, I
like?
think they are. But
Yeah, okay,
but they were
are
really
done.
good, those books.
Yeah, I remember everyone like getting all up in arms because because the movie wasn't great.
No,
So
the movie also tried to do, 4 books. But
yeah,
I think the baguette here, you bring up an interesting point actually. This reminds me, this series right here. I read those 3, and you follow Aragorn's point of view until the 3rd book. I think you get a normal human being's point of view as well.
Oh,
and it's actually the normal human being's point of view I enjoyed much better.
I feel like that's also very cool in books like this, where you're following these super crazy things, and you kind of forget that there are actual normal people living in this.
Yeah, average Joes running around. I can remember a scene in the 3rd one that really made an impression to me. I think it's the 3rd one, where there's this normal average dude, and he's fighting this battle, and he has to overcome with a hammer in his hand and a shield, and he's close to defeat, and it's just so fucking epic because he's a normal dude overcoming this adversity.
Yeah, that gives so much more, like, so much more respect in some way.
Yeah, but it's because Aragorn himself, the main character, he's chilling in a forest with the elves, meditating and stuff.
So main character syndrome, and just leave everybody. Bye.
Yeah. It's because they get too overpowered. I think they have to leave the plot.
True.
It's a big problem.
True. That's again circling back to the Rift War cycle, because I've read that book, that entire book series, so many times. They do this a lot, where you have a saga of some are 2, some are 4, some are 3, but a little saga that talk about these new people, and you meet them. They're normal people, but at the end of the day, in the last book, for some reason, it always ends up coming back to our main character Puck, and him like having to beat whatever big bad is out there. So like,
no, it's really frustrating because Puck is somehow otherwise occupied for the entire book, or the entire 3-book series, until he magically appears to save the day finally.
Yeah, you got through the Serpent War saga, right? The one where with Eric and Rue Avery and those, where they're in the west and fight, or east or something. No, is it east? They're in a different land, and they're fighting serpents. And then
I really like that because it was like a special forces go out to another continent.
Yeah, those are, I love all of those except the last one. It's like the first one, you meet this special force, and you meet the characters, and you get to follow like Rue and Eric through all this shit they go through, and end up being basically sold to it's a Suicide Squad. They're sold to a Suicide Squad.
They're dead men, actually. They were supposed to be hanged.
Exactly.
And they were spared to join this dead squad.
It's straight up a Suicide Squad. Full on DC Comics style Suicide Squad. You're sent here because you're not supposed to get back home. Maybe you do the job, or you die. We don't care. You do it. and that's kind of the first book, and then they end up doing the job, and then the second book, you follow the life after this of one of them, Rue, who was a scrawny guy who just wanted to not die, ends up becoming this merchant. Super cool book.
Rue wanted to make dough, dude, from day one.
True. He
was in it to earn the bread, man. He was in it to earn the bread.
Yeah. And I love the second book because it only focuses on Rue and him climbing from being absolutely nobody in this capital of the realm, and then just getting all the money. He gets some lucky bits. He has a little bit of main character plot armor. I'm not gonna take that away, but I love that, how grounded that is. And then the third one, the war breaks out even further. Even though they kind of won the war in the first one, they only stalled it. And then the third one, it goes down again, and we see Eric leading this army with the skills he got from the first, and then the fourth one is just like, oh, ooga booga Puck, throw fireball.
But it's always, oh, it's all going to shit anyways. You couldn't save it without. Oh wait, there's Puck.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
true. And that's kind of what's bothering me at this point as well. Like if the characters at this point feel expendable. Like they also keep bringing back, or the author keeps bringing back characters as well. I'm in the third to last, and there's Jimmy the third, Jimmy Jameson the third,
which is Jimmy the
Hand's great grandson, because Jimmy gets a son named Arutha, and Arutha gets a son named gets two children named Dash and I think it might actually be Jimmy and Dash.
Yeah, I think he's called Jimmy, the one of them.
Yeah, and then Dash is the cool one that is basically like Jimmy, and then he gets a child called Patrick, I think, and then Patrick gets another Jimmy that's called Jimmy Hand, which is the guy that's then the grandson or grandfather of the Jimmy that I'm meeting now in this one, and I'm like, woo!
I think that's
they all have the same set of skills as well. It's kind of like
morals, dude. I was gonna say that because Jimmy, the original Jimmy, he's a good guy, good man. Good morals. He might be a little bit unscrupulous
character,
but
the first Jimmy is an amazing character.
Yeah, he's really cool because he comes from rags to riches. That way he does. We love those stories, of course.
Yeah,
that's also why I love Mistborn so much. Because we just follow this street beggar who discovers this magical ability she has innate in herself.
Yeah, you said, I think that was right before we started, actually. You mentioned that Mistborn is, you kind of enter this world where the bad guys won. Like,
can you do me a favor, dude? I'm sorry. Can you like pull up 10 most important modern fantasy books or something? I want to just see if I think they're on that list.
10 most important modern fantasy book. I mean, something in like general, just Brandon Sanderson is insane right now. He's
pretty dope. He's pretty hype.
Let's see, we got the first one, of course, George R.R. Martin, A Song of Ice and Fire. Second one, Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I think we looked at that one together, but it was kind of like we decided it was too old. I think that's why we didn't want to read it. And then we got The Way of Kings, third one, Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, and I wanted to do those, but they're not on Mofibo, sadly. Not in English, only in Danish, and I'm not doing that.
Hell no.
I'm not going back.
We got some top fantasy for young readers. Throne of Glass. Have you ever read Throne of Glass? Kix has all of those, and she said those are really good. I've never read them.
No, but it's okay. Okay. What you said, Christoph? Who wrote this in chat? Who is this? You guys might like to sleep in a sea of stars. Christopher Paolini. I think Paolini's authorship is that a more recent book. Because if he needed to sort of grow up while writing as well, I believe.
I like that. I forgot to disable my my sound alerts, so Tato just played a sound going bonk in the middle of speaking very seriously about books. I can't seem to actually find the Mistborn in particular, but I can. But The Way of Kings is it would seem is the best one from Brandon Sanderson to dig into.
Yeah. I think I have to get those in real life so I can read them. I think they're really good. He's a great author.
Number 5 here mentions Assassin's Apprentice as well.
Assassin's Apprentice?
Yeah, Assassin's Apprentice is number 5, yeah.
That's actually kind of funny because I didn't think it was like revolutionary, that book series. It didn't really do anything remarkable in that regards. It's a great series. Now, don't get me wrong, but
maybe it's the whole first person thing.
Yeah, bring it back first person. Perhaps.
I also think because a thing I noticed a lot about Assassin's Apprentice, the entire series, is that it's very personal. It's very, very personal. And I think that's also why we don't really get that big payoff at the end that we talked about wanting. because that's not what it's about at the end of the day. What it's about is the personal, like, the interconnection of these people, and how it feels to live in this world, and what it means to be a witted one, and all of those things that they bring up are not really stuff that are brought up in a lot of others.
No, this discrimination as well.
Yeah, hidden. True.
How he's never realizing who he is because of his blood, this frustration in him as well. It's kind of sad.
One thing I found really funny, right?
Yeah.
In the epilogue, when you meet him, the main character, like, what is it, 20, 50, 30 years later?
Yeah, he's writing his memoirs.
Yeah,
he's writing his
exactly.
memoirs.
And then he goes into what happens to this evil uncle, Regal. That's the uncle's name, and he ends up getting killed by something that nobody can find. It seemed like it was some beast climbing in, or
it's the ferret, dude. It's the ferret.
It's this fucking murder ferret that we meet in halfway through the third book. We meet this ferret who is it's a witted one that had a ferret, and then the witted one is killed, and then the ferret is just like, I have nothing else in my life than murdering this dude.
It's like this wit bond between one animal and one person. So it's like closer than, being married, being related to somebody. It's a bond between souls.
They a good way of looking at it is they mention that that, like, if the witted one dies, or the wit bonded beast dies, often the other one dies as well, or goes out and kills themselves, because they've lost such a big part of themselves.
They can't live without it. And thus the animal becomes more human as the human becomes more animalistic.
Exactly.
But this murder ferret is really funny, dude.
It's so funny, because what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to mention, was that this ferret is just fucking insane, and the main character is like, are you sure about this? Do you really want to kill this guy? Shouldn't you just, go live your life? And this ferret is just like, I must kill.
And it's because it's a suicide mission. That's why it's not like, okay, I can murder him for revenge and get away safely. No, it's I have to hide in his trunk of clothes for like 6 weeks to murder him.
It's more than that. I think it's years or something that this ferret hides in there. It waits, it hides, and then it strikes when he least expects it. Yeah. And that's so fucking funny, because when you're there, when you meet the ferret, you're like, you're fucked. You're gonna die.
Yeah. But it's really determined. I love that. And Regal fucking deserved it. He's like one of the worst bad guys.
Oh, Regal is
one of the most like frustrating bad guys on that Joffrey level.
Legit, he is Joffrey level of bad guy, and I wanted him to lose so bad, and he just keeps fucking winning for so long.
So fucking long, dude. And all he does is like, the entire kingdom suffers from his actions.
Yeah.
And that illogical moves, that's what frustrates you, when you could see the logic in doing the good thing for the people, and he keeps getting away with doing the wrong thing. You're sitting back there like,
it's kind of like he when he wins, it's like he doesn't know what to do, because the reason he wanted to win wasn't because he actually wanted to rule. It was just this, like, we find this out late in the books, that it's just because he's a fucking brat. He just did it because he wanted to be cool.
He didn't want to rule. He wanted to be the ruler. He wanted the prestige, the importance. He's a raging alcoholic as well. He's so fucking disgusting, actually.
Yeah, I fucking hate that guy. Horrible. Or, well, not horrible character. Great character. Insanely good character. But I hate him.
And they're in the scene where they torture the main character. Regal is sitting in a chair, and beside him is standing his right-hand guy, right? Yeah, attacking the main character magically, while they also beat him up physically in a fist fight. It's fucking disgusting.
They're torturing him physically and mentally at the same time. GG, you're done.
GG. And that's also so. I love that one because he's been trained to be an assassin, and so it would be logical for him to ask his assassin master, "What happens if I get captured and I get tortured? Do you have any tips?" And he sort of remembers this while he's trapped here. The conversation he had, that it was better to focus on what you would say than what you wouldn't say when you were tortured. And so he doesn't actually divulge anything incriminating to this guy.
No, surprisingly enough. Even though he ends up, dying. But they also said, like, the like assassin master thing, he also says, like, just fucking, if you're caught and you can't get out, the best thing to do, kill yourself.
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
Get something sharp, kill yourself.
Yeah, straight up, it's just like, if you can't get out, it's better to kill yourself than to divulge our king's secret.
Yeah.
That's also one of those questions it asks, like, how far would you go for loyalty and
nation pride
in
your king.
I think that's an important thing to think about with those books, because the main character goes way too far. He gives up everything for his king and his country, and ends up like the girl he loves marries someone else, and thinks he's dead for that matter, and he fucking has to live a hobo life in the middle of nowhere and can trust nobody because of his country and his crown.
made this sacrifice. But something interesting, the most interesting thing with the Mistborn series is that we're in a universe where the bad guy won. I think that's really what sets this series apart.
Yeah.
For 1,000 years, this evil emperor, half man, half god thing has ruled. And so, but it's also really depressing because the entire quest to defeat this man god thing, you then find out is actually a deeper plot by something more evil, much worse, that you accidentally release by killing this man and stuff, and it all just goes to shit. The entire world goes to shit.
Oh god.
So you overthrow this aristocratic lord ruler man who's enslaving people, forcing them to work, and then suddenly the world just starts going to shit. There's not enough food for people, rebellions,
it's
the world's falling apart.
It asks the question, would you rather,
Yeah, it's stability versus how much would you endure for stability.
Would you rather have this bad guy who is basically ruining the entire earth, or would you have a demon killing everyone?
Yeah. It's this the authoritarian regime. Like, it might be the safer choice short term for these humans, but are you willing to give up your freedom, or would you rather have like free will?
Yeah,
and then let everything go to shit.
I think that's a very important question to ask as well. And speaking of important questions to ask, because at this point we've been talking for about an hour, and that's kind of what the plan for the episode length was or is, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to ask the people in chat, because Baguette has already mentioned a couple of books, but I wanted to ask the people in chat, do you have any books that you guys would like us to read? Preferably something that's a bit deep, ask some questions. I'd love something like, because I'm very big on something like Black Mirror, if you've ever seen that, and recently I watched Love, Death and Robots, and that's actually what made me want to read books that like get you to question what is humanity, for example, like what is being alive, and all those very deep philosophical questions. I had an
experience with that, dude. with a short story from Joe Abercrombie where you follow different characters for a short while in like short stories, but the way you follow these people and you quickly meet them and then they die in scenes from the main story. There's one particular scene I remember where you follow she's a whore in this universe, and she's there in this pleasure house. She's lucky she just has to sit and talk with this guy instead of doing anything else. And then suddenly the place catches fire and she's trapped here, and you get, from her point of view, you experience her death.
Oh,
and that's
God.
That's very tough thing actually to experience.
That is,
I think
that's horrendous.
That's actually you should try that, dude. It's really a good short story series. Sharp Ends from Joe Abercrombie.
I think short stories are often better at like asking these big deep questions, and I think that's also why it comes to view in something like Love, Death and Robots and Black Mirror as well, because it has this short encompassed story, and it's easier to ask big questions with a story that doesn't have to tell you everything.
Yeah, because you don't have to answer them in a short story.
Yeah,
you don't have the space anyways, but you can just open the book. I can remember The Abyss, a short story I read a long time ago, about a man who's on a space station in the middle of nowhere, and he has to observe this region of space where there's nothing, and it just slowly goes crazy.
Of course.
It's fucking nuts, and everybody before him has went nuts, but he's determined he's not gonna go fucking crazy. He's a good guy, right?
It's Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah. Shit just went to shit, man. What is the Black Magician series?
The Black Magician. Let me.
I don't know if it makes you ask yourself questions, but the Black Magician series.
The Black Magician. Goodreads. They usually have.
It's like IMDb for books.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just what it is.
The Magician's Apprentice. Wait, book 0. Okay, there are like a prequel trilogy, and then there's a trilogy.
Thank you for covering that up. It's a prequel, and there's a... Okay.
There's a prequel trilogy, and there's the actual trilogy. I guess. It says here book 0.5 and book 0.7 and another book 0.7. And a sequel as well. Okay.
Of course. Okay, what is their rating?
Sometimes it feels like, fantasy books, you can never just read one fantasy book, or write for that matter, one fantasy book. It's like, you either make 85 or you don't.
You have to like this huge project. You have to start.
Okay, it says here we should expect this young woman to be more powerful than our average novice, possibly even more powerful than the average magician. This year, like every other, the magicians of Imardin gather to purge the city of undesirables. Cloaked in the protection of their sorcery, they move with no fear of the vagrants and miscreants who despise them and their work, until one enraged girl, barely more than a child, hurls a stone at the hated invaders and effortlessly penetrates their magical shield. What the Magicians Guild has long dreaded has finally come to pass. There's someone outside of their ranks who possesses a raw power beyond imagining. An untrained mage who must be found and schooled before she destroys herself and her city with a force she cannot yet control. Aha. That's kind of the intro or whatever it's probably what it says on the back. The ratings are about 4 stars-ish.
Sounds pretty cool. Not gonna lie. But I think I want to do The Way of Kings next for me.
Yeah.
I gotta read some other stuff. I got my mother-in-law to purchase me a book because they didn't have it on Mofibo.
If you want, I'd love to read The Way of Kings as well, but I don't have it. But if you would like to read it, and then we could go through, like, maybe the first one, you could just explain it, and we could talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, and, next time I wanna highlight the heroes, dude. If we can read a passage from that book, find it somewhere.
100%.
I think that would be really cool because it's a really, really cool book. The way it does things. because the way this sort of tragedy of war, it's like brought into this, and how there's always two sides. There's not a good and evil.
Yeah.
And this main in this war between in this world the apprentice Bias, the first apprentice, and the prophet Khalul. This war, Bias, he doesn't give a fuck about human beings anymore. All right, he's an immortal magician. He's been around for thousands of years. Okay, people are no more things than pawns in this great game he's playing.
No.
So he's testing artillery in this battle. One of the scenes.
Sheesh.
And these two scientists who've been working on it, they're nervous as fuck, right? They're expecting maybe to have to fire it once, twice. They brought two cannons. And Bias is just like, okay, you keep them firing, motherfuckers, alright? Either those fucking things fire or you guys are dead. Alright? Keep reloading them. I want to see how far this thing goes. And they just and the experience of the soldiers receiving artillery fire for the first time. Like, they don't get anything. This is Sword and Shield age again, right?
Yeah.
And their experience with like gunpowder warfare. This is also really, really fucking cool.
I'd love to try and like look into that and read a passage from it.
Yeah, and really, we should get into the character of Logan Nine Fingers. I think you would really enjoy that.
Definitely.
But should we wrap up the episode, dude, with like prospects, perhaps for the future?
Yeah, definitely. I brought up our old timesheet here with all the books that we talked about back in the days. And the top one, of course, is The Way of Kings. And we also talked about his Dark Materials, because none of us have read that ever. And they're making the whole fucking TV show about it, which is
what was it called again,
decent.
dude? Sorry?
His Dark Materials, the Golden Compass?
Oh!
Yeah.
The Golden Compass.
Yeah.
But I think the Golden Compass sort of slid under my fantasy radar because of the movie. I think that's a really weird thing to say because the movie was very fantastical.
Yeah, but
I think there was like that British posh setting. I wasn't really, getting into that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching the TV show as it comes out, and it should be a lot more faithful to the books, and it seems like that's way, way, way better.
But is this sort of more spacey sci-fi fantasy genre? Where we're like when it gets interdimensional.
Yep, very much interdimensional. There are multiple worlds and shit in that one.
Summoner series by Taran Matharu.
The Contenders series.
Female authors. I sort of struggle to love female authors. I know this is nothing to do, but I recently listened to a Chinese author. She did the Poppy Wars series. I tried listening to the first of those. Not really great. Sort of struggle to relate with this, but maybe because she was Chinese as well.
You do know that Robin Hobb is a female author, right?
Yeah, but I was trying to say I usually struggle with these, but that's also because I had that bad experience with this. But that's because maybe she was Chinese. But I read a Chinese sci-fi book, guys. You should really get into this. It's fucking awesome. Luke, you would love this as well. If you want to get into the philosophical debates, you should get Cixin Liu. Liu. You can borrow these from me. A Chinese author won the Hugo Award. Three Body Problem, The Dark Forest. The End of Everything, I think is the third one's called. Really fucking good, dude.
I think you talked to me about those once long ago, but I'm not sure. What are they about again?
It's about the humanity meeting an alien race and how this alien race, their civilization is in a constant cycle of destruction. So they're trying to escape this and take over Earth.
Okay.
And there's a lot of really spacey next level technology, where technology almost is magical. And there's a lot of cleverness still in this book. It's very clever. A principle I want to explain, that it's the second book, The Dark Forest Principle. It's kind of mind-blowing when I heard about it the first. It's this, if you think about the cosmic reality of the universe, where if you have different civilizations, different advanced civilization vying for resources. You can imagine it as a dark forest, where every civilization is a hunter prowling the forest at night. It's dark, you can't see anything far ahead of you, right?
Mm.
On a cosmic scale, things are so far ahead of you, you don't know what's in front of you, right?
Mm.
Is it better to walk in the forest and announce where you're going, or is it better to be stealthily moving around?
I would personally, I would say very much better to chill and stealth.
Yeah, stealthily move, but the issue becomes when you meet other people and you're stealthing. Do you shoot first in order to eliminate this threat before it can threaten you? Because you're vying for limited resources here in this universal struggle. Or do you try to open a dialogue with these people and risk them killing you immediately as you open up to them?
That is one of those questions that I want to talk about, and that's
it's great.
That's the stuff
the Dark
I think
Forest
is cool.
principle. Really fucking cool.
Can you write the name of the book in chat? The one that you the Chinese one you mentioned?
Yeah. The first one is called The Three Body Problem. 1 second.
Then people can find it, look it up.
I think it's like this. I got no idea, dude. I can't spell Chinese. It's like this. The Dark Forest, the second one of the trilogy. But the writing style is also really interesting because you actually have a Chinese author criticizing something the Communist Party did.
Oh.
I wasn't really expecting that. Because the censorship, of course, and also this complicated relationship with their more hardcore communist history. Actually criticizing some of the programs they did back then in the book openly.
Oh.
Because in the first one is set in our time, and then the second moves further into the future, and the third even further into the future. So you have this progress of civilization.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool to dig into. But for the ones that are out there listening right now and want to be a part of the conversation, I guess, for next time, which we don't know yet when next time will be, but for next time, try and see if you can find the Way of Kings, and then Sebastian will bring it up and walk us a little bit through and talk to us about the Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I'm gonna write it in chat here. Way of Kings, Brandon Sanderson.
And we're gonna try to get introduced to the series together.
Yeah.
Everyone here together.
Exactly.
So I'm not gonna deep dive way into this. We're gonna get the universe of the series down and talk about the characters.
Yeah.
The first chapter or two.
Yeah. Exactly. So this was
so if you want to get into
0.
a series with no spoilers, we're sitting here spoiling every fucking series.
Everything we've ever read.
So if you want to get in with no spoilers, get in on this now. All right?
I will be I'll probably be announcing like on Twitter or on Discord how far we are expecting to read and like what part of the book we're expecting to talk about, so people can read along if they want.
I can check the Danish on Mofibo, actually, how long the chapters are. We can get us a little sense of how much we can realistically do.
And then we'll write it somewhere so people will know. But for now, this has been episode 0 of well, we used to call it All Things Fantasy, but I don't know if we're still going with that name.
I have no idea, dude.
No.
We're just doing this, having a good time, talking about everything.
Exactly.
Nothing.
Exactly. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you for chatting. Even though we have not been interacting very much with chat, I see every single message. I appreciate you writing. And yeah, thank you. Have a nice night. I've been Poseidon. You know me. You can find me wherever you find me. And Sebastian, you're not on the internet. You're just
really, no.
You're just here.
I'm just kind of here.
Oh, and Kashi coming in right at the end. Hi, Kashi. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you again for listening. You're going to be able to find the podcast once I've edited it in like probably a month or something on your preferred podcast